Hello, I am Blaze, and welcome back to Mastery Rank 0, a little show dedicated to trying to give some helpful advice to newer players. Today I will be continuing with my early game weapon recommendations with good early choices in secondary weapons, and help make sure you have some early goals to work towards. When testing these weapons, I am going to be brutally unfair to them. I'm going to have no more than a rank 1 base damage mod equipped on them and nothing else. Not only that, but to make absolutely certain that these weapons have at least a good chance of doing work for you, I will also be doing my testing on Saturn and Jupiter. As a new player, you will be short on mods, but you're almost certainly going to have more than this. So keep in mind that anything I'm going to recommend will likely do better in your hands with more mods equipped compared to what is apparent in this video. Though that said, the good choices for secondary weapons are pretty limited at low levels, but thankfully there are a few. And the good choices are actually good enough to go with you right to the end. I will begin by covering the Bolto and Akimoto, which will function similarly to standard semi-automatic pistols. The Bolto features a base damage of 45, which is very high for something you can fire so fast, as well as featuring a short reload time. It is notable that the Bolto fires relatively slow-moving projectiles rather than hit-scan bullets to offset their early damage, making it more difficult to use over long range, but after some learning, or if you limit its use to close range, it's actually a rather major powerhouse. Plus it has a very big sound when you shoot it, which may very well appeal to you as well. The Bolto will happily shred any enemies you place before it, and it's very ammo efficient, making it what I would consider to be a very attractive all-around choice for an early secondary weapon. Unfortunately, it does take a little bit of work to get the materials needed for it. The Bolto blueprint will require 15,000 credits in the market, and will require 20,000 credits in the foundry afterwards to craft. Aside from that, its requisite materials will be a Lato pistol, which you can buy in the market immediately for 10,000 credits each, 800 polymer bottles available on Mercury or Venus, 2 Orokin cells from either Saturn or planetary bosses, and 2 Neurodes from Earth. The Orokin cells, if you are farming bosses for Warframe parts, may end up coming to you while doing so, as every boss has a chance to drop an Orokin cell. So you may well get a few while farming Rhino from the Jackal or Mag from the Sergeant. And this is good because a lot of the good secondary weapons need 1 or 2 Orokin cells to craft. However, you may remember I also mentioned the Akimoto. Many pistol secondaries in Warframe have a dual-wield version. The Akimoto is a typical example of how these are constructed. The Akimoto blueprint is available in the market for 15,000 credits, and crafting in the foundry will require 20,000 credits. In addition, it will require you to have built 2 Bolto pistols and combine them with a single Orokin cell. This will make 5 Orokin cells in total. In return for that investment, you will be able to hold 1 Bolto in each hand, conferring the benefit of an even higher potential fire rate, and doubling up the total magazine capacity to 30 rounds. Though it will also double the time it takes to reload, this is typically worth it. It's basically more Bolto, and the Bolto was already extremely good, so the Akimoto follows suit. It is worth noting that you can continue to use the first Bolto while you craft the second Bolto to make sure you get mastery points out of it. You don't need to craft the Akimoto with 2 unranked Bolto pistols. This point is also true for all other weapons that require a different weapon as a crafting material. For a secondary choice that packs a lot more punch per shot, the Lexx will probably be your first taste of the hand cannon style of handguns, and features a very high 70 base damage per shot and a high accuracy, but suffers from a very slow fire rate and high recoil. But it can kill things fairly effectively if you aim for the head, especially when it happens to crit. And in spite of its shortcoming with its rather slow rate of fire, you can buy it from the market immediately for 50,000 credits and get using it right away. So, if nothing else, the Lexx is available for immediate use. However, the real reason you would probably be buying a Lexx is that you will buy a second one and combine them into the Lexx, doubling its rate of fire and effective magazine capacity, increasing its critical hit chance, increasing its status chance, and having only a minor increase in its reload time from 2.3 seconds to 3 seconds, and a minor reduction in accuracy that honestly doesn't seem to matter whatsoever. The high recoil will be more noticeable with the increased rate of fire, but you will be able to control it at close range, or pace out your shots a bit to ensure hits at longer ranges. Generally, the Lexx is just plain greater than the sum of its parts, and are strong enough to scale up with you until quite late on. This will admittedly be a rather expensive option, each Lexx costing 50,000 credits, the Lexx blueprint costing 15,000 credits, and the build cost at 20,000 credits in the foundry. 135,000 credits in total, but rest assured that you can build up a lot of credits quickly by running spy and capture missions, and the cost is well worth it. Aside from the credit cost, the combining process will require a single Oricon cell, available from Saturn or from planetary bosses in general. For the Tenno that prefers revolvers, you actually have two choices. For the first one, the Vasto will likely have you covered as an early choice. It has a small cylinder capacity at just 6 rounds, but features a blisteringly fast 1-second reload time along with a respectable 50 damage per shot and a high accuracy. Sadly, it is also somewhat expensive to craft, but compared to the Bolto, will not require any Oricon cells. The Vasto's blueprint will run you 30,000 credits in the market, and will cost another 30,000 credits in the foundry. When it comes to the actual crafting materials, the Vasto will require 4 neurodes from Earth, 1,200 alloy plates available on Venus, 700 ferrite which you can find on Mercury or Earth, and 1,000 polymer bundles which you can find on Mercury or Venus. If you feel that you enjoy the Vasto, you can also combine 2 Vasto revolvers into the Vasto. Doing so will give it a moderate accuracy penalty and increase in its reload time, but double its effective fire rate and ammunition capacity. The Vasto blueprint will cost 50,000 credits in the market and will require 20,000 to start the crafting process in the foundry. As for crafting materials, the Vasto will need 2 constructed Vasto revolvers as well as 2 Oricon cells from Saturn, or as occasional drops from planetary bosses. And as for your other potential choice for revolvers, you can also go with the Magnus. I'm specifically going to only recommend the dual version here, as the single Magnus is hindered by a rather disproportionately long reload time. However, the Magnus offers double the cylinder capacity with only a 50% increase in its reload time, as well as both an increased status chance and critical chance. The 3-second reload time is still quite long, but the Magnus, having 45.1 base damage bolstered by a 25% critical chance and a 25% status chance, means they are strong enough out of the foundry to still be useful. The slightly lower base damage and really needing the dual-wield version will make them less accessible as a new player choice compared to the Vasto, but they will scale up in power much more rapidly than the Vasto by simply adding on the common pistol gambit mod to take advantage of its critical chance. As for the crafting requirements, some things about the Magnus are easier than the Vasto, while some are more difficult. The blueprint for an individual Magnus revolver will cost 20,000 credits in the market and will require a further 25,000 credits in the foundry instead of 30,000 for the Vasto. Each Magnus will also require 2 Oricon cells from Saturn or planetary bosses, 400 alloy plates available on Venus, 900 salvage which you can get on Mars, and 100 ferrite from Mercury or Earth. So its crafting requirements are generally easier, but each Magnus comes along with the pitfall of a 24-hour build time compared to just 12 on the Vasto and requiring 2 Oricon cells. After that, however, combining them into the Magnus will be about the same. A 50,000 credit blueprint price with a further 20,000 credits required in the foundry, 2 constructed Magnus pistols, and 2 Oricon cells, which again you can find on either Saturn or from planetary bosses. And finally, for the Tenno that believes guns are for wimps, we have the Spira throwing knives, which perplexingly, despite being accessible at Mastery Rank 1, is actually the strongest set of throwing knives in the game as of the making of this video. Featuring both a high base damage at 55 and strong critical stats with a 25% critical hit chance and a 2x critical damage multiplier. As a result, its strength will be greatly amplified once you get your Pistol Gambit mod to ramp up that critical hit chance. On top of all of that, the Spira and other throwing knives come along with 2 pre-polarized slots rather than just 1 or none, which means you can fit more stuff on them without having to add polarities yourself, which is extremely convenient. Its effectiveness is curbed slightly by a slow default fire rate, but that can be fixed quite easily with some fire rate mods later on. It also has an arcing trajectory while in flight, which may make distant targets harder to hit, but you can compensate by changing your point of aim upwards. The Spira does require a somewhat large number of resources, but it will be achievable after some farming. The blueprint will cost 20,000 credits in the market and will need a further 15,000 credits in the foundry to craft. Along with that, it will consume 5 gallium from Mars, 2,500 ferrite available on Mercury or Earth, 800 plastids from Saturn, and 4,000 salvage, which you can get on Mars. These may sound like a lot of resources, but most of them can be obtained relatively quickly. But if you like throwing knives, the spear is definitely worth the effort. There's another notable class of secondary weapons that you can get early on in machine pistols. The weapons in this class include the Furus and A-Furus, Viper and Twin Vipers, and the Twin Grakatas, and are characterized by a fully automatic fire with a high fire rate, but typically feature low damage per shot. When you're starting out, my recommendation is to avoid all of these. Their characteristics and occasional quirks involving reliance on other mods means that these will be extremely ineffective for the new Tenno. And this is a saddening recommendation because the Twin Grakatas can be amazing. But the thing that is going to happen without proper mod support with the machine pistols is that you will be spending most of a magazine to take down 1 or 2 targets, and most secondary weapons only have a 210 reserve ammo pool. So, fresh out of the foundry, the only thing they'll be good for is burning up all of your pistol ammo without much in the way of results to show for it. Not recommended. This concludes my rundown of potentially good secondary weapon choices for the fresh-faced Tenno. I will close off these recommendations by saying that due to their generally higher crafting costs and more limited reserve ammo pool, it is generally a good idea to build a good primary weapon for yourself that you enjoy using first. They will be ready for use faster, and none of my primary weapon recommendations require Orokin cells, so they should be fairly accessible by comparison. However, that aside, hopefully this has helped you pick out a set of pistols that you enjoy and will do the job they need to, or act as a good option to fall back on if you run out of ammo in your primary weapon. And if you have found this video helpful, then I hope you stay tuned for the next Mastery Rank 0. Thank you for watching the secondary weapons edition of Mastery Rank 0. All comments are appreciated, and I hope to see you around next time. For recommendations of primary weapons for new players, you can go check the primary weapons edition of Mastery Rank 0. Or, for my regular content, you can check out my opinions on the Prisma Gorgon or the Destreza Rapier. And as always, good luck, have fun, and take care.